All right, here we go. Does your organization struggle with communication? Do they manage their leadership team properly? Are you a coach that wants to grow your business? All this and more on today's episode of the Underlayer, to show where we go beneath the surface to find out what's really driving behavior. I'm David Young, your host. I work with coaches and consultants to help their businesses run leaner, earn more, and take less of their time. And today, I'm joined by Allexis Tuccio, a master certified coach, CEO, and founder of EZPZ Coaching, and a strategic advisor to C-suite leaders. We're going to talk leadership, communication, growing your business, and at the end, we will touch on stand-up comedy, a subject near and dear to both of our hearts. Alexis, great to see you. Hopefully, no audio issues today. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And we worked through our audio issues. We're right. We're doing good now.
Yeah, so we've moved from Riverside to Zoom. It's the first ever podcast I've recorded on Zoom, so this will be kind of a new experience. But the sound sounds a lot better than it did on Riverside, so I think we're in good shape. Yeah, so thanks for coming on. You came on my. I've done a lot of podcasts, but I only did one. I did a co-host show that only lasted 2 episodes. You were the second episode that just never got released because for
Oh
whatever reason,
wow.
yeah,
Still.
the sound just never came through, and then we just never did another one. So that was it. Anyway, uh,
You're like, if we can't hear her, that's it. No one else goes on the show.
if we can't hear Alexis, then no other
No
guest
pressure.
is worthy. So we're
Well, then this
closing
one better
shop.
go really well because we want this to continue on.
Exactly. So what I was thinking about kind of your background and some of the stuff I saw. You'll be a perfect person to ask this question to get started. So I started my career in sales. I was in sales for about 7 years, 3 different industries. And one of the things I saw over and over is they would always promote the best salesperson to management. And then inevitably that person would be a terrible manager because they're completely different skill sets. And I never understood why they did that because I know the reasoning, I know the logic, like, well, they're the best salesperson, so they can then teach the team how to sell. That's false. Two, just because they were good in front of the customer or the client doesn't mean that they're good like managing employees. But I saw it all the time. Like what why do they do that?
Well, yeah, that's a fantastic question. Honestly, it's a system that is, I think the bigger question here really is why are maybe even average leaders surviving inside of these systems, right? Like they've now promoted the salesperson to be the manager, and now they're not just surviving, they're like there. And they're, killing their bonuses and everything else when really it's the team that's killing it. And they're just kind of, there to take orders from up and bring them down. And so I think a lot of it has to do with visibility versus effectiveness. What are your thoughts, David?
Well, yeah, I don't think they think it through. I think it looks simple on paper, like, okay, this salesperson's, 150% of quota every month. We have a couple other sales reps doing well. I mean, most sales teams, in my experience, you always had a couple at the bottom, you had a couple that were great, and then most of the team resided somewhere in the middle, like month over month. Um, so you needed like it's like sports team, right? Like the Bulls didn't have 12 Michael Jordans and they didn't have 12 John Paxsons, right? They had a couple great players and a couple really weak bench players. Most of the players then were somewhere in between. That's what makes a great team. Sales teams I thought were very similar, right? You had a couple A players, they just always no matter what number you put in front of them, they could hit it. Then you had a couple at the bottom that like couldn't hit the number if you lowered it. But most of the sales team were somewhere in the middle. So I get it. Like you were like, oh, well, it'd be great if every sales team member hit, 125, 150% every month. Like, of course, that's not realistic. So it didn't really make sense. Like, even if you had someone that was great at sales month in and month out, A, the skills aren't really transferable. So you can't teach an average salesperson to be a great salesperson. You can make them a little bit better. You can give them coaching and training, and you can role play. You can do all these things, and they can get better. They're never going to get to that level. Like they just aren't. They don't have the natural, whatever the natural talent or ability is. They just don't possess it. So you can only improve it so much. So I was like, there's so much more to management, right? Like you're talking about, like company directives and orders and communication and organization and looking at the overall picture and managing the team. There's personalities and life conflicts and all this stuff. It's a totally different skill set than just like here's my product or service or both, and like here's the pitch. So I just thought it was always very short sighted.
It's kind of funny because as you were talking, I realized, every time I work with district managers, leaders that are leading team, leaders themselves, we always come to the conclusion that it's money well spent to focus most of your energy on your top performers and some energy on the middle performers and not to really give any energy to the bottom performers. And so because it's kind of been proven time over time, as to your point, is the low performers are never going to become absolutely exceptional unless they want to. They have to want it. And most of the time, if you're at the bottom, you don't really want it. They
Yeah.
don't see something for them for it. Even if it's like $1 million, they don't want it, I guess, right? Whereas the average sales, we're going to say average salesperson, does want it, but maybe they are missing a few things in their training and their understanding of people, perhaps in sales in this case, right? Maybe a lack of knowledge of product. There could be a whole lot of different areas we kind of always diagnose and assist them with. But the top performers, if we give them lots of attention, then they could really be exceptional. They could become like the Michael Jordans of their teams. However, promoting Michael Jordan to another sport, like what he did with baseball, for example, right? We saw that didn't quite work out because he was really great at basketball and being a great basketball player, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean he's going to be a great coach or going to be great at, now, and that's not even coaching basketball, but even any other kind of, because becoming management is now you're no longer the salesperson, you're now having to teach. So you're right, the skills are totally not transferable. And they
Yeah.
fail to recognize that, they fail to give them the proper training, but they also fail to see that that is also a skill set that can be developed, can be learned, but it takes a lot of time, dedication. So perhaps rather than just promoting them right away, training them for the upcoming year on how to train would be a potential route, but they're afraid of losing sales in that position. Now they have like a
Yeah.
position that's, kind of in limbo. So they work too much on the aspect of, oh no, we're losing those sales from this great rep. But then again, you know what they say, if you can't teach and if you can, you know, then you don't have to teach it. Or you have a unicorn like me that does both. I teach it and I do it well.
The world just needs more Alexises.
More
Um,
unicorn.
the yeah, I mean the Jordan thing talking about coaching is if you can look at pretty much all sports, most of the best managers and coaches were not the best players. Some didn't even play professionally, right? Um,
Right.
so but it's, like I said, it's a different skill set. Leading people and strategizing and coaching, totally different than playing, being an alpha as a player. So when you start working with an organization, typically how do they want you to come in? It's obviously not just sales teams, any type of leadership team. What's usually like their biggest either like concern or problem area where they're like, we really need help with this group of people in doing X? Like, what do you hear like the most?
So I've been termed the chaos coach, actually, in corporate. And maybe because I've gotten niched somehow, or I'm just really darn good at it. But I come in when they have crisis management happening, right? Like there is, either change management happening, or perhaps there was a merger, and now, two different companies have to come together, and there's, one side sees it one way, another side sees it the other way. And we both know that coaching, this is exactly where it excels over consulting or anything else, is being able to navigate those tense circumstances and making it not just manageable, but making it really a thriving environment. And so it's kind of funny. They usually come in asking me to help them with, a merger that happened, or perhaps, a group coaching amongst C-suite because they all have different points of view of which direction certain the organization might have to take. And I find that the number one really issue underneath all of that is usually communication. Their communication, it needs help. It needs a lot of help. And it doesn't matter if you're C-suite, or if you're district manager, or if you're even just the sales rep. They all need some formal training on communication, because without
And
that,
it,
then you're getting broken telephone all the way through. And then people are making decisions on broken telephone.
so is that more like being able to take the message from above and then relay it consistently, or is it in like actually the way that they speak and communicate, or both?
I, Both, and the third layer is not just top down, but down up. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people forget that communication is supposed to go both ways. And instead, organizations have started and leaders have started to interpret it with no, what they say at the top goes. And now I'm just relaying the information. I'm just,
Mm.
the messenger. No, sir. If you're in a position, or ma'am, if you're in the position of leadership, you are now in middle management, you are now supposed to communicate what's from up here, but you're also supposed to be able to advocate for your team respectfully and challenge perspectives, challenge thoughts, especially if that's an area of your expertise and something you're witnessing. Um, how to disagree upward. That's a massive
Mm.
challenge I see regularly. They don't know how to challenge upward or disagree upward. And they also don't know how to influence. They'll just literally say, this is what they told us, just do it, do as they say. But there's no influence there, which then creates motivation. A lack of motivation creates a lot of disagreements. It creates hostility at times. It creates discontent, right? Just like a whole slew of not great emotions. And
Yeah,
so if these middle managers, I call them the middle manager because unless you're at the very top or at the very, you're in the middle.
yeah.
And so unless these middle managers know how to communicate both ways, then of course it's going to create bottlenecks. Oh, and a lot of tension for them too. I feel so bad for them because they most of the time have no idea. And then I give them these simple, like skills of like, here's something that could be shared or done, or here's a quick formula that you could use to disagree up. And they're like, wow. They come back the next week. I can't believe it worked. Why can't you believe it worked? Because I've been doing this role for 5 years or 10 years, whatever it is. And not once have I been able to
What?
do that.
Yeah. So like, what is? So give like an example of that. Like, what is something simple that you share with them when they are trying to take maybe negative feedback from their team upwards, like to their manager or whoever. Um, what is one way they do that or they can do that that's more effective if they're struggling with that?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. So a more recent example would be there was a team manager that came and she had the team, they were overworked. They were overworked, they were burning out, and the upper management was saying, well, hold on, we have more projects for you. And she was losing it. She's like, I'm thinking about quitting. My team's already starting to think about quitting. And I said to her simply, I said, have you considered simply sharing with them the amount, literally like a visual chart of all the work that you currently do, and to ask them back, hey, this is all that we currently do. Would you mind sharing your vision as to where that can now, what can we replace out of all that we're doing with this project? So it's not a, hey, we're gonna take it. It's we're doing this much, we're at capacity. Which piece are we taking out to put that in? And she was shocked when she came back to me. She was like, I cannot believe that it worked when I told them we're doing X, Y, Z. She listed out all the different things, which does take time, unfortunately. And then they said, oh, wow, we didn't realize you and your team were doing all that much. We're going to pass this other project on to the other team. And the other team, they just said yes, because they did not have a leader who spoke back. This one action created motivation for her whole team. She came back to me saying, my team is now suddenly, they have a little bit of life, a little bit of color back to their face. Now they realize that there's an ability to finish these projects. And then I said, well, what about these timelines and organizations? Things get pushed back all the time. How realistic are these timelines they gave to you versus the actual timelines? Oh, they're not very realistic. So then we had another session around creating, creating expectations of what is realistic, what's not realistic. But these things are not trained for a leader. And she's been doing this for, I think, 7 years, right? So
Mm.
she came to me as a coach, and we were going back and forth with strategizing how to advocate for her team and for herself so they don't quit. So,
Yeah.
so they don't, right? Even with their minor, I think, what did she say, like 2.5% raise per year or something. She's like, that's not enough to keep us around anymore. Like that's not it. So,
Yeah. The classic 3% corporate raise.
yep.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. I think the visual part of that is interesting, laying that out visually, because I think a lot of people, it's easier for them to comprehend instead of her just saying like we have all these projects and whatnot. When you lay it out in whatever manner, the people above, I think it's easier to grasp and comprehend. Um, I also have found most of my career that a lot of companies were unwilling to listen. If I had a lot of like frontline jobs, like customer service or accounts receivables, roles like that. which were kind of at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. But we dealt with a lot of the issues because it always rolls downhill, right? So like customer service and AR ended up seeing a lot of other aspects of the company, and they all just kind of ended up in our laps. So we're pretty. They didn't think this, but we were pretty valuable in terms of like we could give real insight and be like, actually, there's a real problem with this product. Like we keep getting a lot of complaints about this product or this service or whatever. It seemed like a lot of companies were unwilling to listen to like kind of like the lower level employees, so to speak. So I think it speaks a lot if some companies are able to take that feedback. The older I got, the more outspoken I got. So then they would roll out projects, and I would just immediately push back. I'd be like, "Oh, this is not going to work," and then I would lay out like all the reasons. And I found that nobody wanted to hear that, so that didn't really go that well for me.
Well, you
Um,
have to pick and
but
choose your battles. If it's a no every time, then they're like, no, we don't. Do we want David on right? But on this project, right? But if it's kind of like, okay, yes, 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 and then you get the no, that no holds a whole lot more weight than the no and then the yes, yes. At some point.
you'll like that reminds me. You'll like this story. So my first sales job was I was selling pharmaceuticals, and it's hilarious to laugh about now. But like no, I couldn't do it for 1 second. I did it for almost 5 years. Anyway, so we had this drug. It was a weight loss drug. It was a terrible product. Um, Awful. It missed. I can't even tell you how it missed its mark in its first year by like 900 million or something. I mean, it was just dreadful. Like it
Wow.
flopped, totally flopped. So I remember it was like October of whatever year, and I was having a one-on-one with my boss. We were at lunch, and she was really like hounding me, like how much harder I needed to work on on selling this product. And I told her I was like, I stopped selling it. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, I don't. I was like, I don't promote that product anymore. I was like, the product's dead. The company's going to get rid of it in the next 3 to 6 months. Like they're going to sell it. Like it's a total killer. We've missed the
Oh, I
product
hope that's
doesn't
not a pun intended kind of thing.
the
Oh
product
no.
the product doesn't work. It's an albatross around the company's neck. Like it's untenable, and it can't not be salvaged. Like it's done. She's like, no, no, no. She's like, I just sat in a meeting like 2 weeks ago. They have all these initiatives. They're going to run all these promotions. And I was like, no, like that you might have been in that meeting, and they may have said all that. I can tell you right now. And I was like 26 or 27. I didn't know anything about anything, but I knew numbers and I knew data, and I knew that like companies they don't hang on to losers like this. And so we kind of got into it. Like, well, you got to dig back in, and we got to reparse your territory about who can write scripts for this drug. And I was like, total waste of time. And then that just kind of kept going. And so that was in October, and like February or March of the next year, they were like, yeah, we're done. They sold it. I was like, yeah, see, you should listen to me.
What about your boss? Did she like ever kind of
No,
admit?
no, she just kept riding me, and then she was like, "Okay, well, I can't
Oh,
ride you about that product, so now she's gonna ride me about all the other products because she was a
see,
total
that's not a
micromanager.
leader. That's a
She was
boss.
she was a total micromanager.
Oh,
She worked like 20. She worked like 28 hours a day. Anyway, but so like that kind of feedback, right? She wasn't willing to like hear that because it wasn't corporate. It wasn't. I wasn't like a company yes person to be like, "Oh yeah, okay, like I'm gonna dig in. Yeah, okay, I'll try to sell it." I was like, "No, nobody. It's a no." Anyway. Um, what, so in terms of getting back to communication,
they
and do
should have
you
listened
do
to
any types?
David. They really should have.
Yeah. We didn't get along. We didn't get along on a personal level. I think that probably has something to do with it. Anyway, uh, do you do workshops or do you do coaching sessions on like communication style in terms of like how to relate to their team? Like, what do you see? What do you come across from that aspect?
Are you asking, do I do it, or are you
Yeah,
asking?
like do you do that, or do leaders come to you with like need help, like how to communicate more clearly, whether it's email or whether it's because obviously one-on-ones are a big deal. Like when I was a lot of my career, we just did one-on-ones like at the end of the year or maybe like mid-year and then end year. But so many companies now are doing much more frequent touch points, like weekly touch points or monthly touch points, like way before you have a chance for 6 months to go by just to kind of stay on the same page. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're struggling, just to check in. So I know some managers really struggle with that because like I don't know what to say. Like, what do I do? Like if I have to meet with them every week for 20 minutes, like I don't know. So I don't know if that's something that ever comes up or if you want people on like that type of scenario.
Absolutely, I do trainings. I mean, that's just, that's I've done trainings my whole career, not even in coaching, but prior to, I was always training. So if they ask for training, I will. But And that being said, right now I'm very fortunate. I work with a lot of organizations that have bought into coaching culture. And because I've developed these relationships, they come to me with helping them actually develop the coaching culture. And I think a lot of greener coaches and organizations, and I don't mean like greener, like maybe newer. I mean like that are green to like the whole coaching culture aspect of things, the ones that are green to that, happen to think that it's going to be an easy thing. It'll happen overnight. This will be like,
Mm.
oh, 6 months in and out, and there everything's going to change. That is not it. It's like a multi-year, effort and commitment from both the coach and the organization. And that probably requires a whole multitude of items there that need to be addressed. But most importantly, of course, would be the training around how to be effective communicators, how to be effective leaders. And then one-on-one coaching is crucial to that because, okay, now you've learned about it, great in theory. Now something comes up in real life. How do I apply it? How do I use it? And so there's nothing better than having the ability to be able to train them on it and then also to be like, okay, now let's strategize how we're going to apply it, when you need to, or something new came up. Okay, so which skill can we use? What are your thoughts, right? And leaving it open to them to start also using their own head when it
Yeah.
comes to how to apply things. I think a lot of leaders nowadays, middle, and I shouldn't say like top leaders, but I think a lot of the middle management, they upper management does something really interesting. They almost make it like that middle management has no, they can't think for themselves, and they
Mm.
enable that almost, right? So like middle management will just say, okay, let's just do whatever they say. And now upper management's like stressed because they're like, I have so much already on my plate and I have to make these decisions, blah, blah, blah. Why can't they do that?
Yeah.
So this trainings and the one-on-one coaching is absolutely invaluable. It's something that would save them millions of dollars a year at minimum, um, tens of millions if they were to actually commit to the initial investment of time and money to get it done right.
Mm.
And probably hundreds of millions if they grow as a company down the line.
Mm. Is that so? Do you have like a structured, like if someone hires you, if a leadership team hires you, do you do a set, like you're going to do a set number of sessions? Do you coach them in groups? Is it one-on-one? Does it depend? Like, how do you set that up?
I Everything that I do is tailored
Okay.
specifically. Yeah, so there's not a I don't believe in one size fits all. I know a lot of coaches have the one size fits all approach, and then they wonder why business goes dead for them. It's because you're literally applying something that worked for one organization, but maybe a fraction of a help to this place, but not really. So everything is tailored, and I make it a point to really, kind of go in and observe and kind of figure things out first before even fully committing to a project. Because if I see that there's certain leadership that's completely not on board, even, then I'm not going on there, right? I'm not taking it on. And by that, I mean C-suite. If C-suite's not bought in,
Yeah.
then that's an uphill battle. And I've been doing this for too long to have that uphill battle. However, if the whole leadership team, even if they're just kind of like, they're in the middle about it, I can work with that.
Yeah.
It's if there's like one that's just like, no, this is, phony baloney, then well, that's a shame because Google believes in it, Facebook and all these massive organizations believe in it. Why wouldn't you? What's going on there
Yeah.
for you?
Do you
So
get pushback and wanting to come and observe and talk? Do they let you do that pretty easily?
yeah,
Mm.
they welcome it. They are a lot of times these companies are hemorrhaging money. And they may not even realize just how much. And when they do realize how much and what this can potentially solve, but again, there's no promises in coaching because it's all about the client being able to implement their own strategies, to implement their own um plans, right?
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee there, but if they do follow it, if they do actually commit to it, then they really see the benefit to it. And even if it's one person doesn't do exceptionally well, but another person, another three people, start to get into the coaching groove and are committing to it, they're absolutely going to be seeing the benefits much faster, so fast.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you seen that?
Most of my career, I don't remember. It might have just been hidden from us. I don't remember there being like leadership training. If anything, they would offer maybe like an online workshop or something. Maybe they'd have somebody come in for like one day to
Yeah.
give like a presentation. Um, but I don't, and again, I wasn't really ever that close to that level, but I just don't remember hearing. I don't remember hearing about that. Again, it could have been on the down low, so maybe we just wouldn't have known about it. But I don't know. I don't remember hearing about like my manager ever saying something like, "Oh, I'm meeting with a leadership coach or a growth coach or a communication." I just don't remember them hearing about that other than a one-off, like an online thing, or like we're attending a one-day conference or a half day. I don't know, something like that. Like it all seemed very, like you said, you're not like you could go to a, I mean, you could go to an all-day, one-day conference, and yeah, you might get a couple of tips. But that's not going to really move the
Do anything.
needle.
Yeah.
It's not that it's unhelpful, but you need something more ongoing, something that can really be learned and practiced, like you said, and something you can adapt to. Because in real life, it's going to change. You're never going to have the exact scenario, so you can't memorize it. You kind of have to have the understanding of what to do and when, and then apply it correctly, and that takes time if it's not your natural strong suit. So I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it's changing, or at least companies are open to it changing.
Not all
But
industries, but it's a lot are. I know.
yeah,
I always remember we used to have like every 6 months we'd have like a big binder thrown at us, pretty much like waiting for us at the desk.
mm,
And then it'd be like, here you have like a 5-day training, and it'd be like, oh, not this again, because we already had
yeah,
like this handbook memorized just from a new company, same
yeah,
training manual, new company. Like, why are we doing this again? And they were spending hundreds of thousands on this type of training, and it was always baffling to me because it did absolutely nothing for us. We
yeah.
were,
It was kind of a waste.
yeah,
What are you seeing on the coaching side? Because I know you work or your team works with coaches. We obviously know each other through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is obviously
a great tool.
just that's probably debatable these days. But uh
A little bit more like Instagram lately, I feel like.
the I was gonna say it has like everybody's a coach on LinkedIn, right? Because there's like no barrier of entry. You can call yourself a coach for anything. There's no qualifications or whatever. Anyway,
Tony
uh
Robbins.
yeah. So
Marketing genius.
what what do you see like when you work with them, like what are their struggles? Is it client acquisition? Is it getting results from the clients they work with? Like what do you like where do you usually work with them or what do you see when you work with that clientele?
Could you ask the question again? Because I think I missed the very.
Like when you so getting away from the corporations and more like, let's say it's a yeah, like a one like a coach on LinkedIn or Instagram or something, and they have a coaching business, whatever it is. And they're struggling, whether it's to grow the business or whatever they're doing. Like what do you see from them in terms of like how are you working with them? Is it literal growth, like they're trying to sign more clients, or is it trying to get better results for the clients that they have? Like what are they struggling with, would you say, the
So I
most?
actually, it's so funny that you mentioned that. So I run something called the Coaching Business Think Tank,
Mm,
and I do screen every single person that joins so that the rapport is going to be there and and the synergies there. And so the number one thing, and so it's all about scaling and helping coaches grow their businesses. So you hit the sweet spot. And the number one thing that I see is an issue with all coaches across the board is two things. One is visibility. Nobody knows they exist or that they're open to work. It's
mm,
crazy. They assume that I say I'm a coach and someone's going to inquire with me. They will not, my friend.
yeah,
They will need you to spell it out for them.
yeah,
And then the second thing outside of visibility that I notice is that they're afraid to ask. They're afraid to just simply go and say, "Hey, I need clients. I would, or I have space for clients," which is wild to me. I actually had one coach told me, literally said, "I would rather be dead than say out loud publicly on LinkedIn that I'm looking for more clients or I'm looking for work." And I said, "Why? How do you expect anyone to know that you're available then to work?" And she stopped and she was like, "I don't know. They'll go on my site and they'll book with me." And I'm like, "No, they won't." Right? They won't.
good luck. Good luck with
Good luck
that.
with that, right? And so we ended up coming up with like a little plan where I was like, just bear with me, just humor me for 1 week. Ask 5 people, 5 random people on your LinkedIn that you think maybe could use coaching. She actually landed one client that week.
There you go.
And she's like, I
20%.
can't believe, yeah, it was like a $15,000 contract too. It wasn't like a little contract. She's like, I can't believe that worked. I'm like, you can't believe that worked?
That's funny. I do. I mean, I've been in that space a little bit. In and out. That was a struggle for me. Partly, I mean, a little bit of both is that afraid to ask a little bit, and then
But
assuming
you're
that
in
people.
sales, David.
I know.
You
I
gotta ask
was.
for the
I know.
sale.
I know. I was in sales. I
Come
wasn't very
on.
good at it, but I underestimated. I think when I was that short time frame where I was kind of running my own thing, I think I really underestimated the sales and marketing, and they really go hand in hand. Just how critical that was. I mean, I wasn't as naive to think, oh, I can just post some content and people are going to flock to me. I didn't think it'd be like that easy, but I did think that like posting consistently and commenting consistently, so I had a decent visibility that it would be enough people would see me and be like, oh, like whatever. And that was not enough. And then I think you have to be a lot more repetitive when you have, especially if you have a specific offer. Like you really have to talk about specifically what you do, niching or so I use that word. But you have to be repetitive because people forget and they're inundated with there's so much social media and there's so much noise. They're not just going to see your post and it stays with them. Like they need to see your post like 10, 12, 15 times. And you're really talking about issues that they have. And they start to associate you with solving those issues. And then they might go to your website and look. They're never just going to see like one thing unless it's just like the perfect timing, which I guess could happen, but probably not. They just need to be kind of hit over the head with it like over and over and over. And I think myself included, I was always afraid like, oh, well, I've already said this like a few times. Like it doesn't matter. Like people just no one's living with your content. Like you're living with it because it's your life and your business. So you're thinking about it all the time. No one else is. Like even the people that know you and like you, or even people that need your work, they have too much other stuff going on in their life and they have 8 other social media channels that they're in and out of it, plus their work, plus their life and all this stuff. So their brain is not like always thinking about, Joe Smith's coaching. But if you keep talking about it, then it kind of you have a chance to stay in front of them. It stays on the radar. And so I think the lack of repetition is difficult for most people. 'Cause like, oh, I've already talked about that. I've already posted about that a few times this month. Like, yeah, you need to do it again and again and again, like just over and over and over. How do you help them be more, I guess, visible to kind of stand out? Because obviously it's not easy to stand out.
So, well, wait a minute. I'm confused. Are we talking about organization still, or now are we now moving? We've now
Coaches.
left the organization sphere, now helping out coaches,
Yeah,
right? That's where
we've paused on the orgs and we've moved to like individual coaching,
this could be
individual
like two
coaches.
different sessions. Two could be two different podcasts. I mean, like honestly. Um, so I mean, yeah, so with coaching, so I mean, the visibility is really interesting. So I have a marketing background and a sales background and a PR background, as you're aware. So I'm like a fish in water when it comes to helping other coaches grow their businesses. And one of the principles that I teach, it's not my principle, it's something that I'm so well aware of, and it's been so well taught to me, is that there's something called the 7 to 11 touches. Have you heard of that?
I have, and I actually more recently heard it's closer to 20 or 30, simply because of the online and social media noise that the 7 to 11 is like older, kind of not necessarily pre-internet, but like when there wasn't all of TikTok and Snapchat and
Overwhelming.
Instagram and Twitter. Like you have
Well,
so many
that
places to
depends.
find people.
Yeah, that depends. So this whole social media noise is only if your message is inconsistent. Then yes, unfortunately, you're going to have to do probably more than 20 touches. But if your message is consistent, then you really only still will need about 7 to 11 touches. That's including newsletter, a LinkedIn post, a little reel about you, a podcast, whatever it is, as long as they see
Mm.
your name and they're understanding that it's a very clear thing that they're going to be getting from you. So this is where I think it gets really interesting, and I can really go on and on and on about the background of this. But this is why a lot of professionals say niching is so helpful. So I know there's a whole lot of places that say, you don't need a niche. And that's actually true too. You don't need a niche, but you do want a niche when you're first starting out, at least, so that you can have that same consistent message, which now creates reliability. The person and predictability. The person now is going to say, this is a safe space for this with Alexis. This is a safe space with David, right? This is what they are known for. This is their area of expertise. And so they want to be gravitating towards something that feels like they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about. But if I come to you
Yeah.
and say, you know what, David, let's say Sarah, Coach Sarah. Coach Sarah one day has a post about relationship coaching. Then the next day she has a post about her family life. Then the third day she has something about corporate coaching. Then the fourth day she has something about, I don't know, you know, travel coaching. I don't know, I'm making it up, right?
Yeah.
Traveling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is Sarah known for?
Nothing.
Nothing. And you get
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
But if she starts off with, hey, for example, I'm the chaos. I've literally been nicknamed the chaos coach. That says
Yeah.
something. Now, organizations, when they think, oh no, chaos is coming, right? Or a reorg is coming, or a merger is coming. You know what? I know who to call. We have to call Allexis Tuccio. We have to call
Yeah.
Tuccio. She's gonna come in and she's gonna fix this mess for us. And when I say fix, I'm not fixing anything for them,
Yeah.
but I'm in it with them as a partner, right? And so when you get coined something, but now I don't just do that. I'm also the coach that scales other coaches' businesses. Now I'm getting known on the circuit for that, but you have to build each brick one at a time, or that foundation is going to crumble. And so, with the whole visibility aspect of things, the whole 7 touches, yes, repetition, being consistent with the same material, unfortunately, because it gets boring, especially for an ADHD brain, right? And then it's the where are you visible? You have to be
Yeah.
consistent on that. If you're on a forum one day and then you disappear off of that forum for the next 3 months, and then you come back, that's not visibility.
Yeah. That reminds me a little bit of, have you ever read Donald Miller's Story Brand? You're familiar with that?
I have, yes.
And I think it was his book. If not, I'll give him wrong credit, but I think it was him. But he was similar to what you were saying is he used photography as an example. And so like as a photographer, like you did family portraits and you did sports pictures and you did weddings and you did headshots, let's say, right? So you were really good at all of them. And so you marketed yourself as this kind of multi-purpose photographer, which wasn't necessarily wrong or bad, but that's the way you market yourself. Well, if you, Alexis, are in the market for, let's say, family pictures, and you go to this website, you go to this, find this person, and then you see that it's these four things that they're good at, you're not necessarily drawn to them because you really want a family portrait. So yes, they do that, but then they do these other things. So you're probably likely to not stick around. You'll keep looking until you find a specialist who does family portraits, and you'll probably go with them. So his point was like, even if you're great at all of them, if that's what you're marketing, it's very hard for people. So just pick one. It doesn't even really matter. So just
Mhm.
pick a lane, and that's what you market. Then
Right.
you're so good at that that someone hires you to do family portraits, and you do them, and then they're like, "Oh, my cousin's getting married. Do you also do wedding photography?" And they're like, "Actually, I do." So then they go to their cousin and be like, "Hey, we hired this person who was our family portraits were amazing, and they do wedding photographs," and you get that business. So it's a little bit counterintuitive because you're like, "Well, I'm cutting business off because I'm only talking about family portraits," but you really aren't
Mhm.
because it's easy for people to. It's so easy to be like, "Oh, you do family portraits. I need family portraits." It's a very simple one-to-one relationship. But then you're so good at that. Obviously, either they could have needs, like they could also have sport, they could also need sports figures or headshots, but they know so many people. And so it builds organically because you picked a lane. And that always like resonates with me. And like I said, it's a little counterintuitive. I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm going to lose all of this business because I'm only talking about this like one like area. So like that example you gave, like, yeah, they might do whatever, travel coaching, relationships, doesn't matter. It's like pick one, and then that will probably open doors to other areas. If you talk about all of them, no one really knows, and so you just blend in and kind of fade away.
I had this weird analogy when I first started out because, I was surrounded by coaches that were like, you don't need a niche. And I'm like, I'm in marketing. Don't tell me I don't need a niche. Like I know like I know how to start this off, right? And I remember getting so annoyed. And I remember looking at one of the coaches and I said, look, if you're having a heart attack, do you want to go to a surgeon that specializes with your heart or the one that's really good with your feet? Which one
Yeah.
do you want? Do you want the cardiologist, right? And they're like, well, of course I want the surgeon. I'm like, okay, so, but why? Why is that the doctor you want? The other one knows how to use a scalpel. They know how to do it, right? They know how to do it, like how to operate and how to get things out. They know
Yeah.
everything about the heart. And so they were like, you're right. But now yours, what I really liked about your analogy more though, is that it does end up being more of a referral base of like here, da da da. But there's also with like, for example, whereas mine, it's like, well, they're picking you for your specialty and they're not
Yeah.
necessarily going for your for the foot doctor stuff, right?
Yeah.
However, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be there now for other aspects of health, heart health now, right?
Yeah.
Circulation, etc. So but I was always like, really like, you gotta pick a lane, that build that foundation, and then if you want to go on to the next thing, you'll always have the ability to. People are, very open to.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can open it up once you get in. The problem is getting, I think for most people, the problem is getting people in to get started. So we go wide thinking that you'll attract more people, and usually it's the opposite.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. So you had the woman and you told her to reach out to five people. She got a client. So
Yeah.
did she reach out to five more to get another client, or did she stop and think that was luck?
So she got so caught up and so excited over that one client, that's so funny, that she did not reach out to anybody for a while. And then she comes back to me and she goes, I don't get it. She's like, I need another client. And I'm like, okay. And she was like, what do I do? And I'm like, actually, I was like, what do you what? I was like, have you been, building your pipeline? And she was like, what's that? So I forget, at the time when I was first, now I'm very mindful that people in coaches go in to help and they're in this helping field, but they don't have the basics of sales. And so the coaching business think tank is a lot of it has to do with sales, teaching very basic principles around sales, how to build the pipeline, how to, have a CRM, how to get things right going. So this way it's flowing and moving. This way, when by the time your $15,000 contract is up, you already have another one lined, another two, three, four, maybe even lined up, right? Um, so she did end up reaching out to I think seven more that week, and she did not close anyone, and she was a little discouraged. But then the following week, she reached out to another seven or eight people. I really don't remember the numbers exactly. And she ended up closing another $5,000 deal. So not as big as the first
Nice.
one. So she was like, I can't believe that's working. And I'm like, again, if people don't know you're available for that. And what was interesting though, what we did with her was we also strategize on a very specific niche. So this way, instead of having to like go through people's profiles and having to like, okay, now I have to like reformat everything to this one person, it was, well, wait a minute, who's struggling with this that you see in their posts? Are you commenting, by the way, in their posts? I mean, this is basic, not this is not like you can
Yeah.
Google this, right? And you can find this information out, but sometimes it does take someone telling you, walking you through it, and holding you accountable. The
Yeah.
accountability piece is something that ChatGPT can't do. Nobody
Yeah.
can do for you except for another coach or maybe your husband and wife, in which case they probably annoyed you with accountability. You're probably like, don't tell me what to do. I'll do
Yeah.
it
That's
on my
they're too emotionally involved. So
involved. Yeah.
um I remember when I first got started and I was too new to really understand it. We were talking about pipeline. I mean I understood pipeline, but I don't think I really took it
Grasped.
hard enough. But he was saying like the what he was a sales coach. And so what he told his clients is that you at any given time, you always want like, and it depends a little bit on your offer, but 10 to 15 potential clients like at any one time. And then you're moving them through a process. So you're reaching out and then they say no, then obviously they're off the list. You reach out repeatedly, they say yes, they become a client. So you just lost two. So now you need two more people that are moving through.
Building.
So you never want to be starting like any month or week. Like you never want to be sitting at zero. So he's like, if you're starting a week at, or let's say you're starting a month at zero, like it's going to be very difficult if you have no pipeline to then generate business because now you're almost depending on luck and timing. But if you have 10 or 15 people that you're like you're talking about, you've reached out, you've DM'd, you've commented on their stuff, they've shown some interest, maybe you've had a conversation, whatever. Like they're not so super cold. So you could now kind of move them farther along. But you always need again 10 to 15 at any given time. And if you have that, then it really eliminates like the $0 months or success like consecutive months that are really struggling because then you start to feel pressure, like I haven't signed anybody, any money, and all this stuff. He's like, that's what you want to get out of because once you get in that mindset, it becomes scarcity, and then you're operating out of fear, and then everybody can smell it, and then you can't sign anyone. And he's like, and then you're kind of screwed. So I think a lot of people don't really like do that or understand that um, because it does take work, and like you said, you have to track it, whether it's an Excel or a CRM, whatever. Um, you have to know, like he had this system that he was showing me, and like the different categories of, and he had like 4 or 5 different categories of like new client to 80%, whatever. Anyway, if you're a coach and you're trying to grow your business, like you need some way to track it and you need people to reach out to kind of all the time. Otherwise, you're just like rolling the dice and hoping.
And there's something really interesting because when you're first reaching out, there's a fear of will I, won't I? And then there's excitement. I did, right?
Yeah.
Versus you have your first sale, you did, and now you're looking for your next sale and it's not coming. And I think that a lot of, even in sales, a lot of people would get into ruts because if they would get like 100 people that said no, right? Now they're like, oh, either this product sucks or I suck or whatever, and all these doubts start to creep in. And so the key, especially when it comes to like selling yourself as a coach, is even if you feel like you've gotten into a rut, to remember that this is just a numbers game.
Mm.
And that's something that's always kept me out of that scared, like, oh no, I had 100 people say no to me. So what? I now had that one person that said yes to a $500,000 deal.
Yeah.
Now and so when you're having the like it's just a numbers game, you make it more of like into that and budget, right, of course, because everyone's got their own different financial statuses and everything going on in the background. But if you keep at it, you will land the deal and you're going to get better and better. What went right in that call before? What didn't go right? Why
Yeah.
did they open your email? Why didn't they open your email? Analyze these things, make it more of an analysis rather than an emotional oh no, they can smell my fear, I need this signed. No, you need to
Yeah.
figure out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and then the quicker you can fail fast, fail forward principle. So
Yeah.
yeah, you got 100 people said no to you, fantastic, this is amazing data, use it, right? And now
It's like George McFly in Back to the Future. I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection.
but you know what, to be a coach and to be in sales, unfortunately, unless you wrote a book, I know it sounds weird, right? Because a lot of these coaches that are, quote unquote big, they really rely on their book for their
Yeah.
like, right? But if you wrote a book, you have to go in, you have to be like, nope, I'm not ready for it now. But that's okay because you planted a seed because someone else now, maybe 6 months down the line, will say, hey, I wasn't ready for it then, I'm ready for it now. Or hey, you know what, my cousin needs this, or I know somebody, da da da. So just because it's a no doesn't mean it's a no. It just means it's a no for right now.
No, that's a good mindset. My very first job was selling I went door to door and we sold advertising cards. They were $20 like basically coupon cards. And uh our goal was 100 people a day and if we talked to 100 we would sell 10. 10 was always our that was always our target. And
There you go.
you would make $90. So that was it. That was
A
our goal for the
hundred
day.
people.
So 100 and we'd start in the neighborhood. We would get assigned like a handful of streets and we would start at like noon and then you'd go like noon to 3, then you would
I would just
take
go
a
to an
break to
apartment
eat.
building. I would go in an apartment
Yeah.
building. Ding dong, ding dong, ding.
Sometimes, yeah,
Work
that
faster.
depend. Yeah, it depended. Anyway, but so we wanted to take as many no's as you could early because
To get
obviously
synergy.
the later in the day more people were home. And then you also wanted quick no's. The worst was someone who would spend like 10 minutes with you asking like all these questions. You're like, it's $20. Yes or
What?
no? Like,
Yes
I
or
don't,
no?
why
Yeah.
it's not $1,000, right? And they would go back and forth, and they would ultimately say no. That was the worst. Like the door slammers were the best because you're like, oh, that's like two
Perfect.
seconds, and you move on. So we always wanted as many no's and as quick a no possible because that was we knew that would get you to the yeses. So same kind of principle. Again, a little easier when it's like a $20 like oil change card and not like your coaching service because that hurts a little more when people say no to that. But same idea.
The 10 for the 100 is a great closing. By the way, I have a great book for coaches. I really like this book. It's called The Blue Ocean Strategy. Have you heard of this
Hmm.
one before?
I've heard of it. I've not read it, but I have heard of it.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think because a lot of times I think something else that happens to coaches mentally is that they're like, well, I want to stand out and I'm not going to stand out, or I'm going to sound just like everybody else. How can I not do relationship coaching? Because everyone nowadays is an executive coach. Okay. But are you, like, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that book is fantastic for any business owner. Just to figure out how to not be part of the crowd and really stand out from the crowd. I strongly recommend that book. I actually recommend it to like every coach that is asking me, how do I expand? That's one of my number one books that I say, hey, you got to
Hmm.
read this first. Check that out first. Then I'll
Interesting.
give you other books. I'll give you a whole book list, but start with that.
I'll check it out. I'll add it to my list of books that I'll start to read and never finish. I have about 12 of
Perfect
those.
ADHD. Just get a little breakdown from ChatGPT. What are the key
I
principles?
so I have books on my nightstand in my office. I have books in my car. I have books in my garage. And I'll come across that and be like, oh yeah, I read like 20 pages of that. Never came back. So I
Yep.
read like a whole book. It just takes 12 books to add up to one book. Um, yeah, I can't even tell you the last nonfiction book I finished. Anyway, so as we wrap it up, we talk about stand up. You and I have both done stand up. I've only done one set. I think you've done at least two. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that because I love it and I should really do it more.
Uh, I love stand up too. It's so funny because my last one I had 50 people came out and I
Oh,
was
nice.
right, but I thought that were all for like other comedians. Like I didn't know they came out for me. And so like everyone's kind of like doing like these nice polite claps for like all these comedians. And then I'm like, oh, this is gonna be such a lukewarm reception. And like here I am gonna go on stage and the crowd bursts like, yay, right? And I was just like stood there. I was like, what's going on? And I forgot, like, I was like, I didn't know what was happening. So I really but then I went and did my skit and everyone's like, you did great. And then of course everybody had comments afterwards of like what I could have done better, what I did really well. Like everybody had a word in.
Hmm.
So then the next time I went to like a little open mic where nobody knew me. And my coach, my jokes were not landing, whole different crowd, because I have
Hmm.
like a lot of parenting jokes now. So instead I started just riffing on the audience. And one of the hosts came up to me afterwards and said, how long have you been doing stand up for? And I said, this is like my fourth time on stage. And they were like, ha 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 ha, ha, very funny. Really, how long have you been doing this
Yeah, they
for? And
thought you were an expert.
yeah, they were like, you ripped into like every single person. They all laughed. And I'm like, I was just like, no, that's just what happens when you're in sales for a really long time. Like you know how to like, respond to witty comments.
Work the room. Yeah,
Work the room, yeah. What about
that's
so you
funny.
did two so far?
No,
Good.
just one. No, just the one.
Just one? No, you
Yeah.
promised you were gonna get down to a second
I
one.
I know so part of the problem is I just kind of put it off. The second part is that place that I did it closed. Um, so they just and so I don't have any place locally to go anymore. So I'd have to drive like a decent distance.
And
And
we
that
all
place
know how
wasn't
much you love driving in gas pumps.
yeah, good memory. Uh I just, so you're talking about my OCD. Probably don't know that, but so I wiped down all gas pumps with a Clorox wipe. So like all the grades and buttons, and then obviously the pump itself. And I always feel like I'm doing such a great service because whoever gets gas after me, it's the cleanest fucking gas pump that they will
It's
ever pump gas
amazing.
at. And I'm like, they don't even know, like they don't
I
even
wish all
realize.
attendants would do that. That would be
Yeah.
like my gas
I
station
always like, and it's always so filthy. You can tell that I'm the only person that does it because every single one is so
black.
filthy. Like, it hasn't been wiped down in like 6 years. There's so much dust and dirt and grime. Like they've never been clean. So I always wonder if people, and they don't because people don't pay attention. But like, do they look and realize like, oh wow, like this half of the gas pump is like really clean, and this half, oh my God, like it's like this accumulated, like there's accumulated like filth and muck. Anyway,
Well,
they don't.
after you, I started doing it with baby because I have baby wipes in the car. So I started
Yeah,
doing it with baby wipes, and I actually will only hold the pump now with the baby wipe after talking to
yeah.
you about it. So you have influenced my way of pumping gas too.
I'm glad that I made a difference. One other person out there is more safely pumping gas. Um, but yeah, so anyway, I would. if there was like one locally, I would definitely do more. I have so much I have so much material. Like I can't even tell you. I'll keep a list in my phone. I I don't even know. I could do like an hour. I could do like a Netflix special hour. Because
That's on.
I have so much. Like it just the anytime I go out in public, the general public is like, we're just here to feed you. Like just watch. I just have to go to a grocery store and they're just like, hold,
Something
just get
there.
your get your phone out. Like we're gonna hand you this stuff. Like it is really yeah, it's amazing. I just don't really have an outlet for it, but yeah, it's there.
I gotta tell you
So
the most ridiculous thing. So my stepdad, he, literally he was like, I can write a joke. And I'm like, okay, great. And so he goes to me, he goes to like, I guess he wrote a joke, whatever. He comes back to me, goes, ChatGPT gave me an 8 out of 10 on my joke, which means it's really funny. It's ready for the stage. You can have it if you want it. And I was like, no, what is it about? And he had the most absurd, like it was like about like killing, like not like an old war story or something. It was like an old war
yeah,
story that he like basically made into a joke. And I'm like, that sounds like the most depressing thing I've ever heard in my life. He goes, well, ChatGPT likes it. And I'm like, I'm so glad. You should go
maybe if you can get up in front of robots, you'll be fine.
yeah, like we're fine. ChatGPT gave it an 8 out of 10. I was like, okay, well,
You know, that's funny. That's funny you mention that because when I've told people I do stand up, so everyone assumes that stand up is nothing but writing jokes. And so they're always a little bit off put because I'm like, I don't write jokes. I was like, I just tell stories. And most of them are true. Like they're just shit that happens to me. And I might embellish it a little bit or try to make it a little funnier, but like I don't make it up. Like I don't just create something. And they're always like really like, oh, really? Like, yeah, I don't because I remember the night I did it, there was a guy, he was like trying to do like the wait list. Like he would just show up and if like enough people didn't show up, he'd go on. If it didn't, he'd go home. And that was like his first question. He was because I was like, it's my first time. He was like, oh, he's like, what kind of jokes did you write? I was like, I didn't write any jokes. He was like, what are you gonna talk about? I was like, I'm just gonna tell stories. And he was like, they're funny. It's like, we're about to find out. I don't know.
funny.
So that anyway, yeah. I never even thought about putting a joke into GPT. That's hilarious. Um, like, can I get on in
Pretty
front
cool.
of
8 out of
all
10. I
AI
was like,
platforms? Like, can we get Claude and Gemini and Copilot and GPT just line up? I'm just gonna kill. I'm just gonna crush it.
yeah, they're gonna give you a good solid 9 out of 10. Like solid.
Yeah, they won't laugh. It'll just be like nine, eight,
I can't like I
nine.
love my ChatGPT, don't get me wrong. And I try to limit the use of it because I feel bad about the whole water thing and everything too, of course. But I'll always like if I do type it in, like if I type anything in, it's always like, ha ha ha, Alexis, great point. And I'm like, okay, you're just biased. You're biased, ChatGPT, like
You have to go in and change the setting, tell it to start being meaner. That's the one thing I like about Claude. Claude's a lot meaner than GPT.
Claude and I have fought,
Yeah.
David. We have actually like I was like, no, Claude, you're wrong. And he was like, no, you're wrong. And I was like, oh no, 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 you're wrong. And then finally he's like, oh, good catch. Haha, so glad you caught it, Alexis. And I'm like, don't talk to me, Claude. Like we're not on talking terms right now. I'm going back to ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, 'cause I used GPT for a while and it was always so agreeable. Every idea was great. Every project was great. Every LinkedIn post idea was great. I was like, God, I'm so good. And then I went to Claude and it was like, the fuck are you doing? Like, it's the dumbest thing
Everything
I've ever
sucks.
heard.
You suck. Everything
Yes,
sucks.
it's terrible. Why would you ever? You should quit. Close your computer. Don't close your LinkedIn account. What are you doing? Um, so yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, Claude's mean. Claude's mean.
Yeah, I
And then
mostly
I
use
got that
Claude.
Grok, and I was like, I don't even want. I was like, no, I got my hands full. I got these two buddies. One's really nice, one's really mean. I don't need a third. I don't need a third in this. I'm good.
That's funny. Do you have any upcoming bits, stand-ups?
Well, you know what the problem is everything's in the city, so everything is like at least an hour away. And now on
Mm.
top of that, they've added all these stupid extra like I guess I don't even know what like surcharges or whatever. So if you're traveling during a certain time, they're adding like an easy 20 extra dollars to your Easy Pass, which is our little,
Mm.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So and on top of that, I have to drive an hour out of my way to show everyone how funny I am. That's crazy to me. Like I know we're talking about visibility and stuff like that before, but I was like, is there a more effective way to do this where I don't have to, you know,
you should do an Instagram channel. My Instagram feed is full of especially
really
moms like making fun of, mom life and travel sports and, you know, kids and dogs and Yeah, so you should do that. Do it right from your couch.
Not a bad idea. Not it's pretty solid. Pretty solid. I just started
Yeah.
a TikTok channel, but it's all things coaching.
Okay.
And I sent it to one of my friends, and my friend was like, "This isn't funny at all." And I'm like, "It's all about coaching." They're like,
There's
"Yeah,
no humor.
where's
It's so
Alexis in
dry.
this?"
It's so dry. What the fuck?
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, "Well, joke's on you because I got 200 followers in 2 weeks." And they're like, "Do they know what they're signing up for? Like, you're way funnier than this." They're just getting like they're getting the basic version, and I'm like, okay, all right, thanks, bud.
That's funny. Um, yeah, I don't know. I
Do you have an upcoming show
no. I
you're gonna
need
drive
to.
out to?
I actually had this idea. I had like mapped out. I was gonna hit like all these cities around me. It was like Cincinnati and Cleveland, Cincinnati, maybe down somewhere in Tennessee, like west. And like I was gonna do like this loop, maybe hit Chicago and then like come back home. So it was like 7 or 8 different stops. But then it was like once I started doing the math between gas and like hotels and food, like it was gonna be quite expensive. And obviously it's not a month. There's no money making in it other than just experience and like the stories. And I eventually talked myself out of it. But that was because if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it. I didn't want to do just another like one off and then not do another one for a year. Because I'm not going to get any better at it unless I do more right. Um,
Consistency. Anything we try, we have to just be consistent, I
yeah.
think,
But I have all this material, so I'll run it past my wife. She sometimes laughs, and then sometimes she's like, "You're trying too hard." And then um, I try to give some of the humor to my son, like the dry, sarcastic sense of humor. I was we were we were playing golf. We're obsessed with golf now, and so um, I never had to pay for golf balls growing up because I just got them for free. And then once I got older, one of my friend's dad was a dentist, and so he just got tons of free golf balls. So I literally spent most of my golf playing life with free balls, like the best balls too, not crappy balls. Well, now we have to buy them, and now you're like 45 to $60 for a dozen golf balls, which is ridiculous. So we're always trying to find like better deals on balls. And my son's playing like all the time. So he just burns through balls. So I was in Costco and they sell Kirkland brand golf balls, right? So you can buy 2 dozen Kirkland balls for $30. So $15 a dozen, which is by far like the best deal, right? They're not the best balls, but they're playable. And so we were playing, and it was my first day of playing the Kirkland ball and I hit it way left onto another hole. And so the group of four was then playing that hole. So I had to wait for them to play the hole to try to look for the ball. So I kind of looked forward as they were coming to the green. I didn't find it. I was just going to drop. Well, one of the guys is walking up and he was like, "Hey, what kind of ball are you playing?" And I was like, of all the fucking times for me to play literally the cheapest golf ball on planet Earth, I now have a stranger to be like, what brand ball are you playing? And so I wanted to be like, oh, like Titleist, Pro V, from Soft. And instead I had to be like, Kirkland, I'm playing the Kirkland ball, like I'm playing the cheapest golf ball currently, like you can buy. And he was like, yeah, it's a Kirkland 4 with red dots. Is that yours? And I was like, no, 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 I didn't, no. A Titleist. I was playing a Titleist. I don't know what that is. He's like, you sure? It's right here. It's right by the green. You said it was by the green. I was like, I don't know whose
Doing
ball
those
that is.
like moves.
Yeah, I don't know who the balls that is. So I like let them finish the hole,
Like,
and then
move
I went
along,
and
sir.
yeah, I let them finish, and then I went and hit it. I don't know if they realized I hit that ball or not. So anyway, like just dumb stuff like that. But I was like, literally, I've played like 700 rounds of golf. It's like never happened. And any other time would have been like, oh, Titleist, of course. And then of course the one time it happens, I'm like, oh yeah, I bought the $15 a dozen pack at Costco when I was buying my $300 worth of toilet paper and eggs. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, just dumb shit like that happens all the time.
Perfect. That was a whole story around golf balls, but that's a great. Now, are you going to use that on your stand-up comedy?
I don't know. You test it out. Um, I don't know. I
You
think you
gotta
have to
act
play
it
golf.
out. You gotta act it out a little too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an idea for a one man show too. I've thought about doing that. Like the absurdity, especially of like my career, and my lack thereof. But like turning that into like a production. I have that idea floats around in my head.
Hmm. You know what? One man shows have worked out for a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't know.
okay.
I should probably like put something to it. Anyway, I've kept you way too long. And thanks for coming on. Any final words, whether it's comedy, leadership, communication, marketing, sales, all of it?
Well, you know what they say, you need a niche. So you can't. Not gonna go for all of it.
Gotta gotta pick one.
No, I really enjoyed being on your show. I appreciate you having
Thanks.
me, and I look forward to the next one, whenever
Yeah,
that is.
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, this was on Zoom, so hopefully we actually captured it. And we'll see how it turns out.
see
Thanks,
how it
Alexis.
goes. Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
David. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for listening.